Hello pretties, welcome to Upswirl. So today I have my ranking on my eyeshadow palettes. I think it's been about a year since I did this. I don't believe I filmed this at the end of last year. I think what I filmed instead was ranking all the palettes that I got that year, which wasn't that many. But so this is it for this year. I'm only gonna film it once, and then we're gonna do this again, I guess, next summer. I will say that I feel like my preferences have changed slightly since last year. I feel like I'm leaning more towards neutrals. Also, I used to really not be into pinks last year, which I am starting to get a little more into it. Like today I'm wearing like a rosy bronze kind of shade. Also, I really not into orangey shades, which were not necessarily something I was against before. In fact, when I first started makeup, I was really into orangey shades. Okay, sorry about that. But there's that. Also, this is not me ranking formulas. I am planning on ranking all the formulas that I've ever tried later on this summer, maybe early fall. And I just want to bring that up because although I think Scott Barnes' formula is amazing, this palette itself is not going to rank very high because the palette itself just not the most enticing per se, you know? I just want to kind of put that out there. Sorry, I'm like a little sweaty. Okay, yeah, we're on 106 degrees right now here in Austin, Texas. It is hot, but let's just get started. Like I said, I just don't feel as strongly about my palettes that as I did before. Like there's certain palettes that I feel like have lost some of their spot in my heart. Also, I've decluttered some palettes and I've brought a lot in. So just gonna put that out there. Anyway, let's get started because otherwise we're gonna be here forever. For my lowest ranking is actually my Panda palette, and it is the Pixie and Heart. Dang it, why am I spacing out on her name? But it's a collab palette. I'm sorry. But this is it. Yeah, I don't care for this palette anymore, and I can't wait to finish the shades that I do want to finish so I can just get rid of it. So there's that. Another one where in a different lifetime would have ranked a lot higher is this Party Animal. So this is currently my 1 week 1 palette, and I am struggling hard with this palette to incorporate it into looks and whatnot. Give me a second, guys. Put you a quick hold. Okay, back. I've been having a really hard time incorporating this into looks, and I'm just not into as colorful shades as I used to be. And I just kind of realized that. Also, since I switched jobs, it's not as easy for me to pull off really bold looks. I really am trying to find ways to incorporate color but still tone it down. So this one just really, I've been struggling with it. I think I've only used it twice and I'm supposed to use it 5 times. I'm gonna give my 5 uses, but it's been a struggle, and I think that's why it's gotta be so low. So yeah, there's that. The next one should not be a surprise 21 because this one always ranks really low, and I know a lot of people love this palette, which is the Sweet Talk. I want to just straight up just tell you guys my palette looks very different for most people. So it comes with 2 glitter shades, and I decluttered those to my sister. And then it had 2 other shades here. One was like a Super Shock, and the other one was like a white, like cream base kind of shade. So I do have both of those in these 2 palettes right here because I'm trying to use these up. So I have them at the top of my desk. Like I said, I'm just trying to use them more often. So this is what my palette currently looks like. And I've said it before, on top of the fact that there's 2 glitters that I don't care for, there's 2 topper shades that you barely use, then there's 2 shades right here that look almost identical. This palette was just very redundant to me. What I do like about this palette though is this bottom row as well as this top shade right here. But it's only 5 shadows that I care for. I actually do like this softer one right here. Rather than the one right here. This one's significantly darker, and it translates very much so in the eye, which is why I do like it. And then this has like a flip to it, which I do enjoy. But overall, the palette was just really underwhelming. And you know what's upsetting is that I did not buy this palette at the hype of it. I waited months to buy it until it was everyone's like end of year, ranking of palettes, and everyone was doing like the 2020 palettes or whatever year came out, like favorite palettes, and this was like top 5 for almost everyone I saw. So I was like, it must be really good, I need to try it. And it was a huge letdown for me. So there's that. All right, the next one, not to say that I don't like this palette, it's just, it's not my color story, is the one from Samantha March and Ofra. And these are just not my colors. I will say though, for a cool tone purple palette, mauvey purple palette, this actually works for my skin tone, which I'm really thankful for, because a lot of these shades don't work with my skin tone. We see this olive undertone and this we clash, okay? We don't usually work well together, but they're actually pigmented enough where they don't look ashy on me, and they blend pretty well. Except for this one right here gives me a little bit of trouble, but I can make it work. Everything else actually works really, really well on me. The formula is fine. It's not my favorite, but it's fine. It's just a color story. It doesn't usually work for me, so it's not something that I usually gravitate toward. I actually do like really nice plum colors, so I do enjoy these two shades right here. And for purple formula, it's actually really nice. I'm currently working on the highlighter here, sorry, on the bronzer here. And I do like the blush. I'm still scared of the highlighter because it looks so icy. I'm like, oh, man, it's just not gonna look good on me. But I can make it work if I like blend the heck out of it, and where it doesn't necessarily look like it doesn't fit my skin tone. See that? It is very blinding though. I'm just not into highlighter as much, but so I don't particularly care for that. But the blush and the bronzer are pretty nice. All right, moving along. Okay, let's just get it over with. The Scott Barnes palette. I actually really, really like the formula here. It is so nice. It blends, it builds, but this one actually could be a little deeper. I found there's just not a lot of variety. It's a quad. There's not much to it. The formula is fantastic though. It's so easy to just grab it and go. When I had this as my 1 week palette, I think I had it for a little longer than that. Oh, I just the heck out of it, and it was so easy. I definitely got more uses than what I was supposed to do. I think it was also my deck of panning project pen, so I was supposed to do 10 uses with it. I used it way more than 10 times. It was so easy. It really is, but it's just not the most inspiring. It's kind of, you know, blank. On that same note, I have other two mini palettes from Laura Los Angeles, which are going to be my next ones. Ranking over here in the low end. Honestly, I have no idea where I'm at with like number wise, but here we are. And I'm actually going to go with Sleigh Bell. Although I think Sleigh Bell is actually really nice, and I think these two shades are actually quite unique. I've said this a million times. This shade did not need to be here. What I would have liked to have seen instead is from Boss, like this shade right here from Boss Babe, Deadline. Put Deadline here instead of that one. Killed it. But overall, I just don't feel like you can make complete looks with this one palette alone. I just don't think you can. I don't think it's possible. Just because that red, it's so pigmented and so bright, and the other shades, although you can just do like a one look with them, I have a hard time making complete looks with that one palette. Next one's gonna be Boss Babe. Honestly, I feel like maybe I should hold on to Boss Babe and rank it a little bit later, because the more I see it, I'm like, no, it needs to go a little higher. Okay, so let's wait on that one, and let's go with Proceed with Caution. I think this is where Proceed with Caution is to be. I like this palette for 4 shades, and that's this 4 right here. This little, I wish this would have been a quad rather than a 9-pan, because this little quad right here, perfection. That's all you really need. And the rest of the palette, I'm just kind of like, whatever. But that's really what it is. I don't care for this shimmers right here. I think this one's nice, but this orangey shades, it's just not my thing anymore. I don't like yellow golds either. This shade's fine, although it's very, very loosely packed, and it's just a matte white cream shade. You know, I have that a million times over, and I really need one. I can just buy a single shadow of it. So overall, I just really love this quad right here, and everything else is just whatever for me. Hence why, you know, it's less than half a palette that I don't particularly care for. The next one, it's gonna be a bit of a surprise for a lot of people, because I know this is like a holy grail for a lot of folks, but the Huda Beauty Retrograde palette. I actually think it's a really nice palette. The formula itself is nice. It's buildable. It's blendable. The shimmers have different formulas and textures that I have learned to appreciate. However, everything leans pink. Even this orangey shade looks pink. This neutral shade leaves pink. This purple shade, pink. Everything, this like really warm tone shade here, pink. Everything just leans very pink. And although I have learned to appreciate pink, it just bugs me that these are not true to color. Like, it bugs me to no end that these are really just not true to color whatsoever. Also, I feel like you needed a couple of more darker shades because you really only have this one shade to darken everything. These ones are too bright to be like deepening. So you really have only one shade to deepen, and it's like a plum. So it just needed like a deep brown. I feel like, yeah, that's all I gotta say about that. Everything just leans pink, which is nothing wrong with it, but if it's an orange, it should look orange. If it's a neutral, it should look neutral, not pink. You know, yeah, the formula itself is fine. Just, you know, pink. All right, the next one should not be a surprise for anyone. I've mentioned time and time again how I've had a hard time with this one, and it's the Persona palette. The formula in here is fabulous. For sure, top 3 in my collection. My specific problem is these cool tone shades right here. The shimmers here, amazing. And the deepening shades right here at the bottom are honestly quite nice. I just have a harder time with this too. I found that I can use this shade to like deepen or kind of like the transition shade, but I can't use it as a crease color because it's just too cool toned and it just looks ashy on my skin tone. Now this cooler one, I can actually make it work if I go really light-handed on it, but as soon as I start like really using a lot of pigment, it starts clashing with my skin tone because it does lean cool toned rather than actual neutral. And that unfortunately is not the palette's fault. It's, you know, I'm a war tone girl. That's all I can say. I'm a war tone girl, so there's that. Other than that though, this palette is amazing and the shimmers are beautiful, and I love the Persona formula a lot. It's just these 2 shades really just dampen the whole thing for me, which sucks, but there's that. All right, I feel like now I feel ready to add Boss Babe. There's nothing much to say. It's just a really neutral palette, but it's so easy. I have a dip right here. I love this dark brown. It's really nice. I don't particularly like yellow golds, but this one is like so intense where it actually feels more like an actual true color yellow, which I actually like yellow eyeshadow a lot. I just don't like yellow gold shimmers. But this one, like I said, is so intense and in your face that there's something about it I actually like. These 2 are the perfect champagne and rose gold, and they're just nice. And overall, this palette is very cohesive. You can make so many looks with it that are going to be all very neutral and boring, but I like that. So I'm okay with it. All right. The next one's going to be the Cute AF. I'm actually surprised this didn't rank lower in my palette, and the reason for it is obviously the color story is not what I lean towards anymore. However, this 3 mattes right here are everything, okay? This is my absolutely favorite transition shade. I have a huge dip on it. The yellow in here is very nice, and this dark brown is also very nice color. I actually enjoyed these 2 right here. They're also quite nice. Even though they're oranges or more like peaches, I actually like them, and I don't usually go for oranges. But overall, it's just not a color story that I'm recently been attracted to. Back in the day, I used to love really warm orange shades, and it's just not what I'm into right now. So there's that. Also in the what most people would consider boring spectrum is Double Entendre, which I have panned. I was really considering making this my Panda palette for next year, but I've already decided on a different ColourPop palette to be my Panda palette next year, and I'm completely going to restructure how I handle my Panda palette because I actually want to forget to finish that palette, and I'll talk about it when I get to the one that I'm gonna mention. But there's that. It's a very boring palette. Yes, it has these warm tones right here, but they're not necessarily orangey. They're just kind of warm, which I appreciate. This one's right here are actually quite neutral, as well as this one's, which I do appreciate. And this one's actually quite bronzy. I don't know what's going on with the lighting. It's like coming and going. But anyway, this palette I actually really enjoy. But based on other palettes that I have, it just kind of sits in the middle because I have some really interesting color stories that I really enjoy. And this was just not that interesting. So yeah, okay. This is one where I'm actually surprised I'm gonna rank it so low, but it's gonna be the Pure and Raw Pretty Christy palette. I'm gonna be honest, the colorful side, I don't care for as much. Like I said, I'm just not into really colorful stories the way I used to be. But if I'm looking for a shade here and there, I don't mind reaching for this palette at all. The colors are quite nice and vibrant. They can be a little bit difficult to blend at times, but I can make it work so long as I stamp it. I just have to remember they're pressed pigments, not eyeshadows, so that kind of helps. Now, what I really love is this side right here, the neutral side. The neutral side is so nice, and this shade right here, there's something about it that I really enjoy, and I love doing an eye look with just this right here. It does make like a really like a yellow smoky eye. It's something so nice. And then this shade right here, even though it looks coral, it actually looks very orangey, but it's quite pink, and I really enjoy it, which I was not expecting that. But I actually really enjoyed this palette quite a lot. Nothing was damaged. Okay. But overall, this neutral side is just lovely. But overall, there's just other palettes that I like more. Okay. Next is going to be my Eternal Eclipse palette. Quite honestly, this palette, I could have ranked it a little higher. It's just, it's not my precise color store that I go to. I don't usually go for cool tones. I also thought this, I can actually work with this cool tones right here, this lower bottom one, because they're so rich and pigmented. It looks so nice. The formula is really good. I don't particularly care for the shimmers. The shimmers were quite unexpectedly not what I was expecting. I don't know how to describe that. That didn't sound right, but they were not quite what I was expecting for the shimmer formula. But overall, I really like it. It's just, there's other formulas that I like more that I find a little more interesting within my collection. Actually, I probably should have ranked my next palette before this, so keep in mind, this probably should go before this one. I'm just gonna say that right now and go ahead and do it. Because now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I think this one should be below. And it's a Lara Los Angeles. Although it has some warm tones, it's not orangey warm, which is kind of what I was saying. But I really have come to appreciate this plums right here, and overall I really like this palette. This was my runner-up from a Panda palette for next year, but I decided against it because the other one has rust and I need to just get it out of my collection before it starts like really going bad on me. But overall, it's just a really nice simple neutral, and I really enjoy this black because it's a buildable black and it's not an in-your-face black. It almost can look gray, but I really just enjoyed that one. All right, next, you would think it's a really boring palette, and I don't disagree. Also, I just want to say this palette has gone through it. This one did not have any glitters, but it did have two Super Shock shadows that are now in here, and it also had two kind of like cream matte shades that are now in here. Again, I'm trying to use them up. My goal is eventually to combine the Sweet Talk and this palette into one palette, but this bottom row and this one shimmer shade, they're everything. I think the other ones are like standard shades that you need to have in a palette, but this bottom row, it's the first time that I've seen true neutral shades, and they looked really nice on my skin tone. They blend easily. I was always really scared of neutral, slightly cooler tone browns until I had this palette, and I really appreciate it for it. Also, the aesthetic of it is just so cute. So there's that. Just want to put that out there. All right, the next one is going to be Candy Skies. This is very unique color story to my collection specifically. Also a very rainbow palette. However, it's a more toned down rainbow, and I've really learned to appreciate pastels, and I really like it. I really enjoyed these two right here. What's it called? Duochromes. And it smells so good. Oh, it just smells so nice. But I really learned to appreciate it. These greens are so nice. I really like this palette, and I was not expecting it. Yeah. All right. The next one, I think it's going to have to be Tiny Marbles. Sydney Grace and Tiny Marbles. Quite honestly, this palette could definitely be ranked higher. I think the color store is really cool, but whenever I sit down with it to actually create a look with it, I always just have like creator's block. I don't know what it is. I always end up doing the most basic looks. I end up going for the most monochromatic shades and looks that you can think of. I just really just space out whenever it comes to this palette. I don't understand because I think it's very beautiful. It's so cool. It has a lot of really cool shades in it and the formula is really, really, really nice. I just always have creator's block when I reach for this palette. So, or at least when I actually like sit down to look at it. Because when I look at it, I see the green and I'm like, ooh, that's cool. I see Love Bug and I'm like, ooh, that's cool. I see Jewel Bee and I'm like, that's really cool. But then I can't seem to create a cohesive look whenever I like put it together. So it's quite frustrating when I think about it that way. Okay, next is gonna be Nudie number 2 by Laura Los Angeles. And it's just a basic neutral palette, but quite honestly, I really enjoy it. I do feel like you definitely need to combine it with the other Nude Patootie to make a cohesive look sometimes, because I do think it leans a little too pink. This topper shade's actually really nice and I really enjoy them, and the normal metallic shades are also really nice, and the pearlized shade as well. I think it's really nice, really easy to make looks with it. If you don't want to think about it too much, go for it. It's very romantic shades. I always feel like I need to go on a date whenever I wear this palette, which I appreciate because I love going on dates. But it's just a really soft, easy palette, nothing too deep, and even the deepest shade is slightly pinkier, so it doesn't feel like it's too aggressive. It just has that plum shade right there. So anyway, yeah. Also, the 2 transition shades in here, I totally forgot to mention. Patootie and this one right here, Low Cut. One of my 2 favorite transition shades. Just want to put that out there. All right, I think it's time for us to say it. The Jaclyn Hill palette. This one's one where for a really, really, really long time it was in my top 5, and I don't think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and right now it's barely top 10. It's still a really good palette. The formula still works really well. I really like it. It's just I haven't been reaching for it. I think I need to pull it into my 1 week 1 palette series because it hasn't gotten a lot of love from me recently, and I think it has to do with the way I've been doing my videos with like my 20 uses for palettes I did last year, and then this year I've been like doing the 1 week 1 palette series, and I don't feel like I've been able to play with all my palettes the way I would have liked to. So like I said, I am switching it up next year, but I'm hoping to give it a little more love. I do really enjoy it. It's just, it doesn't hold a place in my heart the way it used to. I also used to, when I did like my repurchasing of all my palettes, this one used to be like always, oh yeah, for sure I'm gonna repurchase it. And then last time I did it, I'm like, actually I wouldn't repurchase it anymore. So I feel like my feelings have changed towards it. Next one is Give It To Me Straight from ColourPop. I really love this palette. I really do. I think it's one of the nicest palettes, and oh gosh, I lost it. Okay, here we are. I lost a little thing. Give It To Me Straight for a long time was top 5, and I think it's a really, really nice neutral palette. I love every single shade in here. Even the oranges in here don't feel quite too orange, and even if they do, I feel like it's easy to pair them up. And even Candid, which has like an orange flip to it, it's quite bronzy and I really enjoy it. Just overall, I like every single shade in this palette, and this is going to be my Panda palette for next year. The reason for it is, I'm not sure if you can see, but I have a little bit of pan in TMI, and there's the tiniest little bit of rust in there. And I know it's hard to see it. I have used it recently and it didn't give me any eye irritation or whatever, so I feel comfortable finishing it. But I've never seen this from any ColourPop palettes before. If you have, please let me know, because I've never seen that before. And it just kind of freaked me out because I have other palettes that are older than this that don't have that, and I've only heard of Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes doing that, so it makes me a little nervous. So this is gonna be a Panda palette just because it is my favorite, one of my favorite palettes, and I do want to use it. So this was ranked number 9. Okay, at number 8 I'm gonna go with Red Dragon. This one's one that kind of came out of the left field for me, but quite honestly, I even said it when I first got it, the shimmers did not impress me. They were a little bit too chunky, they had a lot of fallout. I will end up with like glitter in my face, on my cheeks, and I don't know, I didn't care for it. I thought the duochrome and the multichrome were really cool and they have a really nice effect, but I just didn't care for that chunky glitter formula. I have learned to work with it a little bit more recently, and I really come to enjoy it. I think there's a lot to this color story, although it is very bam, you know, it's not very bam, sorry. You can do a lot with it, you really can. The only shade, surprisingly, that I don't care for is this one right here, which is Dragon. I don't care for this one. I just don't go for red shadows. It's just not my thing. But I've actually really come to appreciate this plum shade, even this wine shade. I've really learned to appreciate them. Because I remember I don't care for the wine in my Huda Retrograde, but I really like the one here. This shade, I got this palette afterwards, made me appreciate, no, I got this one first. Made me appreciate that one a little bit more, but I had to like revisit it for me to like do that. Anyway, I really enjoy this palette, and I'm really glad I got it. So there's that. Did y'all hear that? That was my boyfriend talking to my dogs. Okay. Ranked at number 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we have the Aphrodite palette. This one's one where I definitely could have ranked it higher, and looking back right now, I'm tempted to rank it higher. It's just that everything here I really, really enjoy. Like right now, from 7 up, give me a second, guys. Right now, from 7 and up, okay, sorry. From 7 and up, they're just, it's gonna be really hard for me for these last ones, but so I'm just gonna put this one at number 7, and the only reason for it is because I just don't feel like the color story is 100% cohesive. I just don't think this dark blue goes with the palette. I've mentioned this before. I also do not care for this yellow gold right here. This is the exact kind of yellow golds that I do not like. I think a pinky shimmer or even like a duochrome pink, like pink gold, would have gone better with the palette to incorporate some of these shades right here. But this one right here, so that's the reason why it's ranked a little bit lower than the other ones. It's quite honestly just that. All right, the next one, I almost was this close this morning to buying the On The List palette from Colourpop, the one that's exclusive at Ulta. And then after looking at it some more and some more and some more, I realized it's really damn close to this Natasha Denona palette. Like the color story is obviously not the same, but the Natasha Denona formula is significantly better. So I was like, yeah, I can't do that. I think there's like a shade that's actually just like this. I think they have a really cool duochrome shade that is definitely not in this palette, and I think that's the only miss. I think everything else is kind of here. They have some like corals, some pinks, deep greens. So overall, I feel like the essence of the palette is right here, and I really like it. That formula, it's amazing. I don't particularly care for luster and or vigor, because I just don't care for reds like that, but everything else is really nice. I really like this palette. It's really cool. I've come to appreciate this pinks a lot more, and these greens are really nice. This army greens right here, this duochrome right here is so nice. Just overall really nice. I just wish this brown was also a little deeper, but other than that, it's really nice. So that was number 6. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're down to the last 5. I feel like Nudie Patootie has been dethroned. It used to be top 3 for sure, and now we're looking at top 5. So, you know. But overall, out of all of my nude palettes, oh, I did that. Okay. So I just did that to my palette. Whoop. Out of all my neutral shades though, this is the one that I really enjoy. There's different textures that I like. They definitely can do some colder tones. So you can definitely do something more pink, something a little more yellow, more mustardy, something deeper, more cool tone. There's so much you can do. There's some silvers in here. I just really enjoy this palette. If I don't want to think about it, if I want to look nice, I want to look sophisticated, if I need to go to a wedding, this is my wedding palette, okay? I just really, really, really enjoy this palette. It's so nice. The formula is amazing. And the shimmers are really good. The foils are a little bit harder to work with because obviously they're foil shades, but I mean, it tells you use them wet or use it with a glitter glue, which is usually what I do. So overall, I really enjoy this palette. It's just so easy. There's no hassle whatsoever. Okay. We're getting here. Okay, number 4. It's the Anastasia Beverly Hills and Jackie Aina palette. Here we are. This is one that I've always really enjoyed, and I haven't used as much as I would like to. This is definitely for me more of a fall, like some end of summer, early fall palette because of this pinks right here. You have those duochromes right here that I really like. You can definitely do something more neutral with it. Dollars is this is the kind of gold I want. I want a dirty gold, you know. I want a little olive gold. Those are the kind of golds that I enjoy, and this palette just gives it to me. I don't have any shades in here that I don't care for, even though I don't particularly care for reds. This red shimmer is actually quite nice. It definitely has a very bronzy undertone, so it can look more neutral if you pair it with like this credit, I think, yeah. So yeah, and then this taupey shade right here, I've never tried a shade like that before, and it complements my eyes so beautifully. I've just really come to enjoy this palette a lot more than I ever thought I would. So overall, this one, top tier for sure. Okay. All right, we're getting to the top 3, and I'm like not sure what to pick. Okay, I'm gonna go with the Odenside and Angelica palette, the Hella palette. The reason for it, honestly, is that it is a little bit harder to create some looks with it. I do find myself sometimes getting a color block, creator's block with it, and sometimes it doesn't have the versatility that I want, just because some of the neutrals have very strong undertones. So when you want it to look a certain way, sometimes ends up looking a different way than you want it, just because again it has some very strong undertones. For example, this one's right here has really strong undertones, same as this one. So there's that. The metallics in here are really nice. This is a different formula, I feel like, from the one in the palette, Judy's palette. But overall, I've really come to appreciate this color story. There's so many cool things with it. These right here, these 2 shades, make it or break it. The pinks are really nice. I just overall really enjoy this palette, and I think the color story is quite unique to my collection. I'm sure you guys noticed that as well. So overall, really enjoy this palette. Okay, and she has been dethroned by Miss Number 2. So Jaded has gone down to number 2. So Jaded for a really long time was the number 1 palette in my collection. To be honest, probably if I play with it a little bit more, I haven't really touched it this year, except for maybe once or twice, because again, I'm doing the 1 week 1 palette. I feel like it just hasn't gotten a lot of love for me, so I haven't played with it. And overall, and if I were to get rid of all my palettes and only have 1 left, this can be it. I got rid of the glitters, obviously, because I don't do glitters, and the Super Shock that's here I have in my little quad over here, because like I said, I'm trying to finish those because I'm scared that they're gonna go bad. But overall, anything you can think of, you can pretty much do. And it has, again, those like dirty golds right here, which definitely has a strong green flip, which I love. I love greens. This shade right here, it's so nice and unique to my collection. I really enjoy that. I can work cooler tones. I like to do this cooler tone look between these 2 right here. It's actually quite nice. There's a lot. There's so much in here that I love, just absolutely love, which I'm happy for. So Jaded is my number 2. And for number 1, drumroll please, who would have thought? But the little engine that could. Here we go, Identity 2. I'm actually quite shocked that I'm ranking this as number 1, especially because just like So Jaded, I haven't really played with it much this year because of my 1 week 1 palette series. It really has been kind of left in the back burner. But the formula, chef's kiss. A person that does really have a really nice formula, definitely top 3. And I think this shade right here, even though it looks a little more cool tone, it looks really light, it can actually be built up to be quite dark. And that was not a good swatch, but I'll show you guys. Ugh. It can be built up and it's so nice. It looks so nice in the eye. It's so nice. I've really learned to appreciate this plum shade right here. So beautiful. Even this cranberry shade, this bronzes. I like this shade. I find myself looking for this shade a lot. Every time I pull out this palette, I always end up doing an all black smoky eye. My nicest black that I own. It's extremely pigmented, but yet it's not hard to blend and work with. So overall, this palette is just, there's something about it that I can't not do it. And I will say, unique, not my favorite, but it's similar to the Boss Babe yellow, where it's so yellow, it's not necessarily gold, it's an actual yellow, and it just happens to be a shimmer. So, and that I can kind of work with because I like yellow shadows. I just don't like gold shadows. But this is so much yellow gold that I really like. Okay, this has been a really long video ranking my palettes. I kind of did it on the fly with you guys, which is why it took me a little longer because a lot of times I was like, I don't know about this. Maybe I should have thought about it a little bit more before I sat down to film this. But overall, I'm happy with where I left everything, and that's it. Please do not forget to like and subscribe. I would love to hear from you guys. What are your top 3 palettes that you currently own, or top 5 if you have the time, because I just love to hear what other people have in their collections and how they rank them. And also, if you tell me your top 5 or top 3, also tell me how many palettes totals you own, because I'm curious to know. Like I said, I currently own 29, but I'm curious to know how many you own. All right, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.